It's time for the Winter in the Wasteland 3 road trip build. Again this year I'm using a Matchbox K-7 as my base vehicle. But I'm gonna add some things to it as well. I'm trying to do a lot more multiple casting kit bash kind of thing on this one, as opposed to like in prior years where I've resin printed, 3D printed a lot of items for it. Here you see another one of the castings. There's actually going to be 3 of these bugs in this thing. But what I was thinking for this build, a few ideas, and you can just see what I'm doing here. I think it's going to be pretty obvious on the screen, at least the starting part. I had in mind that the National Lampoon Vacation Wagon Queen Family Truckster. And that's what was on my mind as I was doing this. And I was also thinking that it's going to be a trip across the country. Bobby and I, in this post-apocalyptic world, are taking the girls, Maddie and Sarah, across country to visit family in Florida. So we're going the southern route. So while I've done heavy snow in the prior 2 builds, the prior 2 invitationals for Winter in the Wasteland, this time I did no snow. I did a California winter. And I keep this pretty clean. And yeah, it's kind of, yeah. But you'll see. Now, there's another casting I'm bringing into this. And this is going to be a component of the body. And this section actually becomes the housing unit on this build, the living unit. There's going to be multiple sections. I wanted to take the basically that box section off the COE here for a section that I would call part of the armament section. And a lot of this video is sped up, and I apologize in advance. This is almost a 40-minute video, and I've edited the heck out of it. You don't get to see a lot of painting. You see virtually all of the construction. Yeah, that's not where that ends up there. It moves back a little. But anyhow, you don't see a lot of the painting, a lot of the detail painting, things like that. But you do see all of the build. And I tried to edit it down. I had over 3 hours of video that I cut down to this. Hey, look, a tanker. An all-metal tanker. That was pretty cool. That tank is going to be used for water tank on this vehicle, on the finished vehicle. But you'll see. In case you can't tell already, I have a heck of a lot of fun with this build. It's goofy as heck. It's a summery winter almost. I'm sure some people will say it's not winter enough. Yeah, well, I was born and raised and lived my entire life in California. So the only time I've seen snow is when I've been on vacation somewhere. So this is actually more in tune with the winters I know. This thing can handle rain though, like a beast. So I take the regular wheels off the K-7. Yes, you will see an incredible amount of JB Weld in this build. The JB Weld in this build makes up for any lack of JB Weld in earlier builds during the year. I use a lot of using CA glue to tack things in place and then chasing it with the JB Weld. You saw I did mount already that housing section right behind the cab. That's where that's going to rest. It's a tall unit. And so it goes there. I do like the, you see the roof on it has those lines already. You'll see I end up covering some of that. You will also notice I'm going to do some things with JB Weld like that right there that you shouldn't do at home. Yeah, you're probably not supposed to wipe that with your fingers and stuff, but hey, I do. I do drill out the front posts on the VWs. And I see in 2 of them here. There's actually 3 VW castings that I use. They're all the same. I only tap the front posts, and that comes into use later. It's an important part of what happens with these. So I do drum tap them, put screws in them. The placement of those front posts also affect some of the layout of the build. And I'll try and explain that as I go. I cut off the back section on 2 of the bugs using the X-Acto razor saw, as you see there. So I cut 2 of those, and then I merged them together. Again, I really like using CA glue to tack things together. It lets me get a precise placement and hold that I need, and then I'll follow that with the JB weld for the strength to make sure that nothing comes apart. And when this build's done, it weighs a freaking ton. It's not as bad as the Ghostbusters K-7 that I built, but it's pretty darn close. It has a lot to it. So I do kind of a fine line seam with the JB weld. The nice thing about these post-apocalyptic builds is they're not going to be pretty. And so I don't have to super finesse it with the JB weld. I can get away with a little slop, and because it could be just rough welds, it could be anything. That's kind of my approach on this. And to tell you where this thing kind of ends up, in my mind, I see the Wagon Queen family truckster, post-apocalyptic version, not that pea green, no wood grain sides, but I see it as basically indestructible with a fantastic paint that holds up to anything. It's just the stuff I'm adding to the family truckster, the add-ons, that actually rust and, are kind of beat up. But man, that paint on the family truckster holds up to anything. You do see styrene being busted out for this build. And it's not super thick. I did use a thin styrene so that I could just cut it with scissors, as you see there. That just makes life. Again, it's not a super smooth build. It doesn't have to be. So I didn't, it's not like I'm sanding these to perfection and cutting everything with an X-Acto knife exactly as I want it and making that fit and finish that, you love seeing on highly detailed customs. This thing is a beast. So there's the living section behind the cab. Now this is the armament section that you see going on there, and there you see where the water tank is going to go at the back. That is a plastic section off the COE. God, I love that COE casting. I need to use that for a future build. But take that plastic section there, and I do end up covering with a chunk of styrene that little opening. It would show a little bit, and I thought that was the best approach to covering it, was with just a piece of styrene. So I fit that into place, and then that's going to drop into the bed of the K-7 as well. I am recording the audio for this, the voiceover, kind of late at night, so if I seem like I'm drifting at some point, I probably am. Yeah, I swapped some CA glue on there, stick that to the back of the housing section. The roof panel on that box worked out really well, and I'll explain why when we get to that part. There you see the water tank, and I need it elevated a little. And so, first things first, it's another batch of JB weld. And what I do is I end up swapping that over those side panels. And these are just going to be rough, as if really they're just rough. They're armored. I'm imagining this section as being heavily armored, and that's why I use this heavier this heavier casting part for this section because it's just thick metal in reality. So I thought that would work out well for the housing section where, people can go in there and sleep. If the girls aren't manning the guns, as you'll find out later, they can be in there resting. So there you see that dual dub. The dual dub! I'm cleaning it up a little. Again, the front posts on both halves are drilled and tapped. And again, I don't do a super, filing to this thing. I'm not really smoothing it all that much. I clean it up a little, make sure it sits flat. Now here's the other bug. And what I'm doing on that is I'm filling in the back wheel wells. I'm using the tape to just give me a pattern so that I can cut styrene to fit. And it's a quick cheat on something you don't have to be super accurate on. It still requires a little trimming and stuff, but I'm sorry you can't see that there, but I get that tacked into place, use the kicker accelerant to speed up the setting. And you see now I've just made that pointed tail. And you may have noticed I did file that back post smooth. Like the other two, it is drilled and tapped on only the front post. As you see there that I'm pointing out, I put a little shield behind the post there. Yeah, I got out the digital calipers. God bless those digital calipers. I use them so often to measure things. It's not funny. It comes in super handy on decals. But I just had to cut a piece of brass or just a piece of metal to raise that tank up. It wasn't sitting the way I wanted it to sit if I just dropped it in the back. Also here I'm putting down a piece of styrene, and there will be another piece. I don't know if I do it on camera, but you will see it later, where I'm going to be mounting the rear axles. I end up adding styrene to the front and back axles to get the height that I want for the wheels. Oh, I thought I hadn't sped this up for a second. Look at that, JB Weld. Who would have thought? It's almost like a JB Weld mixing video. There's nothing in the picture. There we go. So I had added another piece of styrene to the back, so that was 2 pieces of styrene to the back, 1 piece of styrene to the front. Again, it's probably, I don't recall the thickness, it's probably 1/16 of an inch. Oh, it's probably not even that, thinking about it. But again, it's to give me a little more wheelbase back there to mount the axles because of how I needed to do them. And then on the front, it's just, I end up putting the axle in virtually the same place that the front axle originally was. But I needed the height. I wanted to block it up a little bit. And again, I like it. I'm doing a reasonably neat job with the JB Weld. And that's something, depending upon how you mix it, you can really smooth it out pretty well just using a toothpick. If you really want to get fancy, I am not recommending using your finger, but if you're wearing gloves, you might smooth it out with your finger. I'm having to pack some of it in there because of the gaps. And again, this JB Weld, I'm using it instead of just CA glue because I really like the strength that it gives me. I basically could drop this casting when it's done and nothing's going to happen. Then I finish off around the brass piece that I added to raise that back tank. There will be a similar piece of brass used in a little bit here. I'm also closing off the front windows on the doors, the side door windows I'm closing off. I thought about putting armor on them or screen, and I thought, no, I'm just going to close them off. Again, not a super fancy job. I don't finish it with, say, Bondo putty or anything like that as I do on a custom car build, on a non-post-apocalyptic build. There you see the wheels and tires I'm going to use on this. I want this thing jacked up. It has kind of an amphibious look to it. And I did end up grinding out those wheel wells. There you can see some marks I put. And I had to grind it out quite a bit on the body. And then the axles for those wheels were larger than normal, so I needed to use some slightly larger brass tubing than I'd use for, say, a Hot Wheels axle. Cut those, figured out exactly where I wanted them so that the wheels would still turn, and again, tack that in place with CA glue. Again, using the CA glue as a cheat to just hold it in place before I can get the JB Weld on it to really hold it in place. Time for the tank. So now that JB Weld that I'd used back there had set, I let JB Weld set overnight, just as a general rule, so that it's good and solid, perfectly cured by the next day. Then I mount that tank on top of that brass. Now it's time to add some screen to the various bug castings. And that's that sanding mesh that I've used in other builds. Ben Pop, BP Custom Creations, I saw him use that a while back, and I really like the look of it. And so I've used it in a few builds now, and I found it really easy to work with. It stays in place exceptionally well, and I like the look. I like how it hides the interior as well, which I do include the interior on these. I'm not sure why I did, other than just in case there's a chance of seeing it. I only use CA glue to hold the screen in place. But admittedly, I use quite a bit around the edges. And I've never had a problem with it. I probably could have edited this down a little bit. Probably more than you needed or wanted to see. But there you have that. I'm pretty happy with the look of it. You can also see how I put the styrene behind the posts as well on that section. And on the interiors, I did not paint the interiors at all. You're not going to see them, but I thought, well, I'll cut them up and still jam them in there. So I did that, which may have been goofy, but why not? This is the single dub. You see how I went over the styrene on the back tail with JB Weld. I did that off camera. And now I'm just putting the mesh on that one as well. It did have the little split window. I thought for a brief second about filling that in with JB Weld, and I thought, no, I just love the back split window, so why on earth would I do that? That's just silly. I have to say, using the CA kicker, the accelerant, to cure the CA glue quickly is a godsend. If you don't have accelerant or kicker, get some. I don't spray it on. You've probably seen other people spray it on. And for these little things, I just find the spray to be weird and messy when you spray it. It gets everywhere. And again, I just chopped the interior and stuck it in there. So what I do is I just unscrew the sprayer part of the bottle of accelerant, and I just drop it, use it like a put a drip on it. And I find that works pretty well. I did for a while use an external dropper, but unfortunately it was apparently somewhat porous and allowed the accelerant to evaporate through it, which surprised the heck out of me. I suppose I could just put less in it and only put it in there when I wanted to use it, but that's way too much work for me. I try to do things, if you haven't learned this about me already from watching the videos, I do things in a quick, lazy fashion. So if there's something that it's going to take me time to do that isn't absolutely necessary or doesn't really have a significant advantage, I'm not going to do it. So, like the accelerant in another bottle. Yeah, it was nice having the pinpoint dropper, but then when it was evaporating out of there so quickly, and don't get me wrong, it works great. And if you choose to do that, I see why. I'm just too lazy to be filling it up all the time or adding to it all the time. And when you keep it in the jar that the accelerant comes in, it lasts a long time. So, went over the axles with JB Weld. I do cover, and I don't show this on here, but I do cover the ends of axles, and I'll mention this as I'm using the CA glue to attach the rear bumper on here. I use glue dots. They're used to stick photos down to like scrapbooks. You can find them in most hobby stores like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. And they're just little tiny soft glue dots. They're gooey. And I use them to cover things. And so like when I'm doing the axles on here, I use it to cover the ends of the axle so that JB Weld doesn't get in there. On those posts on the VW, the 3 VWs that you see here, I ended up covering those posts with the glue dots at some point because I didn't want paint or glue to get in those. I also, when we get to the guns on here, when I was painting the guns are oh, there you see the guns. Speaking of the guns, there's 2 of the 3 guns that are mounted on there. They're just temporary right now. Oh, this I wanted to mention. The top of that box had a pattern to it that fit the VWs perfectly. It fit the opening, so it made aligning this pretty easy. And I'm going to tack those VWs down now with the CA glue. But there you see the guns, one of the guns. And what I ended up doing is where the screw is on that hole in the bottom of the guns, when I went to paint the guns, I used the glue dots to cover those holes as well. And then after you paint them, you just take a pair of tweezers or a toothpick and you pluck that little glue dot out of there. It's still gooey and soft, and so it pulls right out of there. And it had protected them. Now it's time to mount the front dub. Now you see where it's going. The front dub placement was interesting. I wanted to mount it back a little further, but I couldn't. I had to mount it a little farther forward so that I'd be able to get to the screw under the front gun. I'm really glad I realized that before mounting this. I had it in mind right after attaching the gun, fortunately. But it was one of those things that could have gone horribly wrong, and fortunately didn't. I did have this bundle, this roll, this tarp roll-up that I bought off eBay a while back. It came in a big stack of different things. You may recall I did a build that had boxes in the back. It was a truck build a while back, and it was the one for roadkill meats. Yeah, that build I had boxes in the back of meat, and when I bought those boxes, it also came with these rolls, these bundles and stuff. And so I thought, well, that'll look good on the back of this. This will just be a bundle that I'll mount to that back bumper. I could see someone doing that, rolling up some stuff and just tying it to the back. Again, I'm just CA gluing that in place, even though you can't really see it because I'm off camera. When I'm recording these, I always think I'm dead center too. And I'm not. Recording this stuff, if you've never recorded your builds, it's interesting. What you think is happening isn't always what you see how far out I am here. I don't know why I wasn't zoomed out this far on the other shot, but I wasn't. There's nobody to blame. You can't blame the camera. So, yeah, it was all me. And now I'm filling in the ends of that brass tubing, that square tubing. I'm smoothing out the edge of it, and that's going to hold that in place better using the CA glue, then using the CA glue, using the JB Weld. I'm going around the dubs, filling in gaps between that styrene behind the post and what's below it. Again, strengthening that bond of those to the overall casting. And on the front, there, again, because I had to mount the front dub farther forward, there was a larger gap that needed to be filled. But first I'll do the sides. And I definitely was going over those with my finger. Yeah. So I did want that to be a smooth look. Not super smooth, but just not glopped on there either. Again, kids, don't do that at home. And then here's the larger gap that I needed to fill in with JB Weld. You know, it worked perfectly for that. It fills it in really well. Gives you a great solid bond. And no, JB Weld does not sponsor this channel or any of my videos, despite repeated attempts. Not by them, by me. I don't use that much JB Weld in a year, so I don't blame them. What you see there is what's called a raft. And when you do PLA, like fishing line 3D printing, that's what you print onto. It's a base that it lays down first, and then it prints up whatever you're printing, like the guns above that. I wanted to put a solar panel on top of the housing section. I thought the pattern on the raft is perfect for that. So I throw some CA glue on there and just glue that thing down. Yes, I will have to paint it black again later, but I like the pattern. I thought the pattern looks cool. It kind of looks like a solar panel. Oh yeah, in case you were curious. Yeah, it rolls. Yes, and you are not going to get to see a lot of the painting on this. I did paint it lime ice, Tester's lime ice, to start off with the green. Behind the cab, that tube you see added to the top is a rocket launcher. That would be launched from the cab. It's in front of the housing unit. The lime ice, I go over the entire casting with Duplicolor metal cast smoke to really darken it up. I paint the bugs a different color. I spray them a different color at one point, 2 different colors, as you'll see in the final build. I add things. Like if you look on the housing sides of the housing unit there, you see 2 vent tubes. Yeah, I added those. I was having fun. I almost added a lot of other stuff. I added a 3D printed panel to this passenger side, the right side of the vehicle. There you see it on the housing unit. Again, just making it look bulkier, heavier. That was the look I wanted for this. I really wanted that tough look that the Wagon Queen family trucker had. Family truckster, excuse me. From National Lampoon Vacation. That thing was just great. And I'm trying to remember the line from the movie. It was something along the lines of, "You don't like it now, just wait till you drive it." Or you think you don't like it now, just wait till you drive it. It's a great line. So I do darken those wheels. White and chrome weren't going to cut it. Chrome, okay. I do end up smoking all this stuff too, because I just wanted it, there's Nuln Oil going over everything. I hit it with, I believe it was clear smoke. Possibly not. It might have just been flat clear. I think it was Nuln Oil, and then I just went over everything with flat clear. Yeah, I don't think I smoked the wheels. The glass, I decided to do what I did once before. There you see me masking it off. I did not do the bare metal foil like I did on a previous build, but I end up shooting that with that aluminum chrome paint that you've seen me use in other builds. And then I peel the tape off. After I peel the tape off, I hit it with smoke to get the final look. It's still bright, but I kind of like the bright look. I did a bunch of stupid little detail stuff with some brightness added. Around the top of the rocket launcher, I hit that with red. I hit the base of each side door with a red stripe, kind of like a caution tape kind of look to it. I am pushing that center section into place. The front end pops in to those openings. I did put some detail. You see, I put those little round bump things in the top of that front Volkswagen. I put a lot of rust around the added details, the things that were added to the Wagon Queen family truckster. Now, the paint on it is indestructible, but the stuff I've added rusts like a son of a gun. Now it's time to add the base. Maybe not. I think I put the wheels. Oh, yeah. I had screwed up. And I left this in just to kind of show, yeah, we all screw up. I forgot to take the screws out that I had in there while I was painting it. But once those were out, then I decided, okay, well, I'll put the wheels on the base before I add the base. Could have done it either way. Decided to do that. I added a little color to the tops, the caps on the water tank. I knew that Sarah, as we're crossing the country, what I envision is our daughters, Maddie and Sarah, are manning the guns at the back of the vehicle. And so since they're manning that, they insisted that we put pink noses on the nose of each dub and whiskers. So if you look closely at the finished build, I mean, you're going to have to look real closely to see the whiskers, but you will see the dots of the pink noses. That's just what they would have done. And yeah, we would have let them do it, Now, my wife, Bobby, would have probably wanted to put rhinestones on the nose of the front bug, but you got to draw the line somewhere. I also wasn't sure, just thinking about it, if I would be the one driving and all the girls are manning the guns, or if Bobby's the one driving, I'm manning the nose gun and the girls are manning the back guns. I'm not quite certain. But, it is what it is. But we were on our way to Florida. Visit family. Yeah, we were not going to go to the north with snow. It's like, nope. Past 2 years, I've had way too much snow in the builds. And I actually have a container of snow out in the garage. that I could have dumped all over this, and I decided not to. So it's a warm winter in the Wasteland. Get this thing screwed together. There you see the big magnet I put on the screwdriver because I was having a problem with the washers. That's a 256 screw, self-tapping screws on the body, and then a 256 washer that I used. It's handy having those washers around. You may recall I just used one on the Evil Weevil build I did recently. You never know when you're going to need them, but they're handy to have. And like on that one, I used it to fix the base as part of the fix of the base, which came in really handy. Oh, there you see the red detail I put on the side of the water tank too, or red marking. Now the guns aren't on it yet at this point. Yeah, it rolls. There you see the guns after I hit them with that silver chrome paint, and then I used Citadel black contrast paint, which is like, imagine a heavier Nuln Oil. A much heavier Nuln Oil. It's like mixing paint and Nuln Oil 50-50, if you're kind of curious what it's like. The guns screw into place, and there you see why I had to mount that front bug a little farther forward, so I could get to that screw under the front gun. Side guns weren't really a problem. The wheels do stick out a ways. The turret, the guns are positionable, whatever direction you want them to go. You may notice the bugs in the back are a slightly different color than the bug up front. I did paint them different colors. Those were Tester's camo colors. Again, 2 different sand colors, and then after going over it with smoke, it darkened them. So there you see the original K-7. Poor little innocent thing, not knowing what was going to happen to it. I love the K-7 casting. After finishing this build, there's part of me that just wants to do a stock K-7, maybe a different livery to it. Probably a different livery. And here's what I turned it into. Yeah, I got it to balance on the turntable. No one is more surprised that that thing's balanced on the turntable than I am. It was twitchy at first, but then once it was there, it was there. So I had big plans for doing a diorama. I had big plans for all kinds of things. Oh, I don't know if you saw the pink nose and whiskers on the tip of the nose of the bug, that one bug that went by, but there you see the pink nose. And yeah, you almost see the whiskers. But yeah, I want to do another K-7. It's a cool casting. So there you have it. I will be doing a recap video for the Winter in the Wastelands 3 participants. And I hope to have a playlist with links to their channels if they have YouTube channels. It's not just limited to YouTube creators to participate. But thank you everyone for watching this build. I hope you've enjoyed it even as long as it's been. There's an unmodified K-7 for comparison. This has been a blast. Please check out all of the other participants in this event. I thank all of you that are participating in this for all of your support. Everybody stay safe and healthy out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.